Welcome to the Case Files. In the 1980s, the world of professional wrestling was a spectacle of impossible strength, blinding charisma, and heroes and villains writ large. Adolfo Bresciano was one of those heroes, known globally by his ring name Dino Bravo, the world's strongest man. He commanded stadiums, battled legends, and carried the pride of his Italian-Canadian heritage on his massive shoulders. But the spotlight he craved was a fragile, fleeting thing. When the crowds faded and the wrestling camera stopped rolling, Dino Bravo returned to the city that was both his home and his cage, Montreal. Here, in the shadows, the lines between kayfabe strongman and real-life mob associate blurred into a fatal mistake. On March 10, 1993, Adolfo Bresciano was not killed in a wrestling ring by a vicious opponent. He was killed sitting on his couch in his Laval home just north of Montreal in a brutal, professional execution. He was 44 years old. Shot 17 times, 10 times to the head and 7 times to the torso, Bravo's murder was fast, vicious, and left no doubt about the message it sent. It wasn't the work of a random criminal. It was a contract hit. Tonight, we ask how a global wrestling superstar went from selling body slams in Madison Square Garden to selling contraband for the Montreal Mafia, and why, 30 years later, the execution of Dino Bravo remains one of Canada's most notorious and unsolved murder cases. As always, my name is Cody. I run this channel with my partner Katie. Welcome or welcome back to the Case Files Minds of Madness. A reminder, if you do find today's video interesting and informative, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories told by yours truly. Now grab a snack and a blanket, and let's dive in. Adolfo Bresciano was born in Italy in 1948, but grew up in the heavily Italian neighborhood of La Salle in Montreal. From an early age, Adolfo showed two defining traits: a fierce determination and a physique that promised greatness. He started his wrestling journey in the early 1970s, training under the great Dino Bravo, who was a legend in Canadian wrestling. Brito recognized not just Bresciano's natural power, but his charisma. He was immediately pushed as a star. Bresciano adopted the ring name Dino Bravo, trading on his Italian good looks and powerhouse strength. By the mid-70s, Dino Bravo was the biggest star in Lutte Internationale, the Montreal-based territory run by the Rougeau family and Dino Bravo. He was the territorial king. For the Quebec audience, Dino Bravo was a hero, winning the Canadian International Heavyweight Championship 6 times. His success in Montreal caught the attention of the major promoters in the United States, including Vince McMahon Sr., who ran the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, or WWF. In 1978, Bravo made his first foray into the big leagues. Paired with Dominic DeNucci, Bravo quickly won the WWF World Tag Team Championship, a major title that announced him as a force on the American stage. But despite this initial success, the American run didn't stick, and he returned home to Montreal. Throughout the early 1980s, Bravo's legend solidified in Canada. He was essentially an athletic promoter himself, a gatekeeper, and the financial driver of Canadian wrestling. This is where the story pivots. In Montreal, professional wrestling and powerful non-wrestling personalities often shared the same arenas, the same circles, and sometimes the same interests. Adolfo Bresciano wasn't just a popular wrestler. He was a popular figure in the Montreal nightlife, known to the right people. These early connections, made during his reign as the undisputed king of Canadian wrestling, would lay the foundation for his future tragic detour. By 1986, the wrestling landscape had changed entirely. Vince McMahon Jr. had transformed the WWF into the World Wrestling Federation, or WWF, launching the national and soon global wrestling boom. Bravo returned to the WWF as a full-time fixture. However, he was repackaged. While he retained the name, his persona was fundamentally altered for the American market. They stripped him of his local hero status and reinvented him as a villain or heel. His new gimmick, the world's strongest man, a claim backed up by impressive feats of staged strength, including attempts to break records and pull massive loads. He was managed by the notorious Jimmy Hart and later the slick French-speaking manager Frenchie Martin. This was Bravo's peak exposure. He headlined major shows, participated in the first Royal Rumble, and was a prominent figure at WrestleMania. His greatest on-screen storyline came when he feuded with the then Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior. However, while Bravo was technically near the top of the card, he never secured a major championship in the U.S. He was positioned as a workhorse heel, strong enough to challenge the stars, but never strong enough to win the title. By the late 80s, life on the road was grueling. Wrestlers faced constant travel, financial uncertainty, and the toll the profession took on their bodies. Bravo was nearing his 40s. The pay, while good at the peak, was often insufficient for the high-rolling lifestyle of a superstar once the spotlight started to fade. It was at this critical juncture, when the WWF run was slowing down and the money wasn't coming in as easily, that the darker side of Adolfo Bresciano's life began to take precedence. The connections he had made back in Montreal, the powerful figures who controlled legitimate and illegitimate businesses, were now calling on him. Bravo effectively retired from wrestling in 1992. But Adolfo Bresciano wasn't retiring. He was simply changing professions. When Adolfo Bresciano returned to Montreal permanently, he did not settle into a quiet retirement. He became deeply entrenched in the organized crime circles that ruled the city, specifically allegedly working for the Catroni crime family, one of the powerful factions in the Canadian mafia. Bravo's utility to the organization was threefold. First, his size and presence made him an ideal enforcer. Second, his legitimate fame gave him access to places and people that typical low-level associates could not reach. Third, and most importantly, his connections and clean record made him perfect for the massive, lucrative illegal cigarette smuggling trade. In the early 90s, the illegal cigarette market in Quebec was booming due to extremely high provincial taxes. Smugglers would purchase untaxed cigarettes on native reservations or in the U.S. and flood the Canadian black market, making staggering profits. Dino Bravo's role, according to police intelligence and reports from the era, was to act as a major distributor for the Catroni family. He was reportedly running massive shipments, moving truckloads of contraband cigarettes across the border. The risks were enormous, but so were the rewards. Bresciano was earning serious money, but he was also dealing with hardened criminals who operated without rules. This dangerous new life was not a game. The pressure on Bravo was reportedly immense. He was in debt to the people he was working for, potentially having mishandled or lost a shipment of cigarettes. In the world of organized crime, a lost shipment is not a business loss. It is a debt that must be paid. Allegedly, Bravo had been warned multiple times about his failings. The professional world he was involved in had no second chances. The stakes were life and death. The end came quickly. On the evening of March 10, 1993, Adolfo Bresciano was at his home in the Vermont area of Laval, just outside Montreal. His wife, Diane, was out running errands. His 11-year-old daughter, Claudia, was home, practicing piano in another room. He was alone, watching television in his basement, sitting on the sofa. That is when the killer, or killers, gained entry. The murder was clinical, execution style, and designed to send a clear, terrifying message. When his wife returned, she discovered her husband's body. The wrestling legend was gone, replaced by a crime scene that reeked of betrayal and debt. The investigation by the Laval police force immediately focused on organized crime. The sheer violence, 17 shots from multiple weapons, spoke volumes. This was a message hit, pure and simple. The most frustrating aspect of the investigation was the wall of silence. In organized crime cases, cooperation is rare. Witnesses, if they exist, refuse to talk out of fear for their own lives. No one in the Montreal underworld would offer any concrete information. The code of silence, or omerta, was firmly in place. The theory held by police was clear. Dino Bravo had either stolen money, lost a major shipment of contraband cigarettes, or attempted to muscle in on a territory that was not his own. The murder was sanctioned at the highest level of the Montreal mob to protect the integrity of their smuggling routes. The investigation, however, quickly stalled. There was no forced entry, indicating that Bresciano likely knew and trusted his killer or killers. There were no witnesses other than his daughter, who heard the shots but did not see the perpetrators. There were few usable forensics. Despite the high-profile nature of the victim and the media attention, the case went cold. The authorities had the motive, they had the context, but they did not have the person who pulled the trigger, nor the person who ordered the hit. Over the years, theories have circulated relentlessly. Some suggest that Bravo's debt was the primary driver. Others suggest he was threatening to expose certain figures within the wrestling or organized crime world. Regardless of the exact trigger, the consensus remains that Adolfo Bresciano was killed for his involvement in the illegal cigarette trade. As of 2025, the murder of Dino Bravo remains unsolved. The Montreal police have never officially named a suspect, and the case sits quietly, a testament to the fact that even global fame offers no protection when you cross the wrong people in the shadows. Adolfo Bresciano was a man who lived two drastically different lives. In the ring, he was Dino Bravo, the invincible Italian-Canadian hero who could press slam mountains. Off camera, he was a debt-ridden associate caught in a brutal game of territorial control in the unforgiving Montreal underworld. His death was the tragic consequence of those two worlds colliding, the showman and the smuggler. He sought the thrill and the fortune that came with the risk, and ultimately paid the ultimate price. This case file remains open. Justice for Adolfo Bresciano is still sought by his family and by the police. Thank you for joining us for this tragic installment of The Case Files: Minds of Madness. If you found this case file compelling, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most persistent mysteries. Hey there! Before you take off, we'd just like to take a second and say that we really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Katie and I are so grateful for the incredible Case Files community, so thank you for being a part of it. If you want to help the Case Files continue to grow, one of the easiest things you can do is leave a like on this video and consider subscribing. Be sure to hit that notification bell as well and select all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. We want you to know that we truly appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much, and we hope to see you soon.